Major Mohammed Ali Shah, defense expert, is also joining us. Major Shah, your first comment to this unfortunate news coming in.
Uday, it's very, very sad, and whenever, as brought out by Ajay, whenever a chopper accident takes place, a chopper crash takes place, it comes down like a stone. It doesn't glide down, unlike a fixed wing. It comes down like a stone straight away. I've been flying in choppers since the time I was a captain as a young ADC. In the northeast, especially where the weather is very unpredictable, but here in Kishtwar, again, the weather is unpredictable. We don't know exactly what would have caused it. We are waiting for the inquiry. The court of inquiry is going to happen definitely. And whenever any equipment, any damage, any loss of life, or any casualty, forget loss of life, even if there's a fracture in the army, there's a court of inquiry on that as well. So there is going to be a proper court of inquiry, and it was really very shocking. It was very, very alarming. It was very, very concerning, because many of the army aviation, the ROP pilots are friends of mine who are serving right now in the army. So it is indeed very, very surprising, and not surprising, I would say shocking actually. And I would just tell the families of the ones who were aboard to just hold strong.
Yes, absolutely. You know, Major Shah, as far as this chopper is concerned, we do believe that 2 to 3 personnel were on board. These choppers are not very big, are they? I think max to max about 4 personnel sometimes on board. Obviously, we don't know how many pilots were there. Was there 1 pilot or 2 co-pilots? Those are inputs that we will perhaps get in due course of time. But right now, we're getting word that 2 to 3 personnel perhaps could have been on board, Major Shah?
Yes, Uday, you are absolutely right. The Army aviation choppers are all single-engine choppers. They are either Chetak or Cheetahs. They are, and you normally have 2 or you have 2 pilots, or 1 person piloting it sometimes, and you have 4 people on board. So you have, and 2 people in the passenger seat behind. So that is the fixed wing of the fixed engine. The single engine of the helicopters. Apart from that, there is Mi-17 Victor 5, the helicopters where, for example, where our CDS, the former CDS, General Bipin Rawat, had crashed in Kunur. That was a twin engine, a double engine aircraft helicopter. So there are different helicopters. There is a Kamobs, which is in the Navy, which is meant for carriage, basically purpose. Then there is Mi-17, which is there in the Air Force. And the single engine, there is Cheetah or Chetak. So most certainly, yes, what you brought out was very, very right and very, very accurate over there. These choppers are not very big. Maximum 4 people in the Army aviation, in the ROP, the RNO flight, the recce and observation flight, can be 4 people can be accommodated in that.
Yes, also, you know, Major Shah, just talking now about this terrain, it's a pretty far-flung area, we believe. It's a hilly terrain. In Kishtwar, Marwa area of Kishtwar district, Major Shah. Also, the weather tends to be unpredictable. It's also been raining a lot in the past few days, we're learning.
Yes, Uday, the weather has been very unpredictable. Forget about Northeast, forget about Jammu Kashmir. Even in Delhi, for that matter, it rained heavily yesterday, it drizzled today. There was a heavy rain again in the morning. So we can't really say. And imagine the plight of the weather in those regions, in those hilly regions. I mean, one can't really say what's going to exactly happen or how the weather will take a different turn altogether. So yes, it is indeed very, very concerning. But whenever, let me tell you one thing, I'll just conclude by saying, whenever, I remember with my GOC, we used to fly in the helicopter in the Northeast where the weather was very, very unpredictable. The general officer commanding, even though he was a lieutenant general, he had told the full colonel who was commanding the RNO flight, Colonel Rodney, that you are the boss. You are the captain of the ship. We will go by what you say. We will not fly in case you say there's bad weather. Yes, we will not fly. If you say that you know the best about your machines. So many a times it is the decision of the captain of the aircraft at that time who is in command of that aircraft. He decides. Now there can be a technical error, there can be a human error, there can be bad weather, there can be anything. See, normally again in a helicopter crash, let's talk about a bird hit, which is a very, very common thing in a fixed wing. But in a helicopter crash, a bird hit does not affect. Why it does not affect? Because the speed of the aircraft, firstly, it is not of the speed of a fixed wing. So the possibility of a bird hit normally in a helicopter crash is ruled out because unless it gets fixed, it gets stuck in the engine somewhere. But most likely, because of the velocity, the bird also come out. So there is going to be a proper inquiry. The army takes it very, very seriously, and there is going to be a proper case study on this. And of course, it is easier said than done. And by seeing that such a thing will not happen again, we don't know. It's unpredictable. These are accidents do happen. It happens to us, to the best of us, the best of drivers on the road as well. So I hope such a thing doesn't happen again in the future, whenever, wherever, because as I told you, many of my friends, many of my dear friends are pilots in the Indian Army. Uday.
Obviously, the priority becomes rescue and relief. A team is on its way to the spot. Obviously, if it's a far-flung area, if the weather is adverse, that affects the kind of time it takes to reach the spot, isn't it, Major Shah? And obviously, the priority in such a situation is to check if any of the people on board are alive and to get them to hospital, to get their medical attention as soon as possible.
Absolutely, Uday. Uday, I will tell you this, I'll narrate this anecdote of this very, very dear friend of mine. His father was the vice chief of the army staff, and I'm talking about General Naidu. His son is in the Air Force. He survived, touch wood, miraculously, and he's a very brave officer of the Indian Air Force. His wife also is an Air Force officer. He survived a helicopter crash sometime in the late, it was, I think, the year 2008, 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And he survived a helicopter crash, which was very, very miraculous, and thankfully so. So if people say that helicopter crashes, no one survives, no, let me give a ray of hope, because umeed pe to dunya zinda hai, dunya qayam hai, and hope keeps us going. So most certainly, the first priority is to check whether whether passengers are still breathing or not, whether the people on board, whether they are still alive and they would be rushed to the hospital. I'll give you the case of, again, the famous case of General Bipin Rawat's air crash. That time there were no survivors, of course, but then there were people on the spot. Like even it is told that even the CDS at that time, the former CDS, was brought to the military hospital. He had asked for some water. He had asked for. Similarly, now they are various things. Like Varun Singh, Group Captain Varun Singh, the brave officer. He had got a Shaurya Chakra earlier. Here again, his father is from the Army Air Defense, very, very well known to me. He survived. He was in ICU. He was on ventilator. There were a lot of prayers going for him.
Yes.
So it is, again, I hope they are survivors in this today.
Okay.
I really
Major
hope.
Shah, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on that story. We certainly hope for the best.